Saw a dappled wonder settling across the fields, hovering on angel wings, brandishing a blazing shield.
Where do they go? The ones that run away.
I think often people get lost in the barrenness or get lost in like the bigness of this Amazon project and how articulate every single writer has been about you. But I don't think there's been enough space yet to speak about your process, your design, right? And the reason I want to, okay, so there's multiple ways that we can go with this question. But the first question I have for you is dialect, right? And I'm gonna read from our Bible, Colson Whitehead, which is, I think, is such an important, it's like a very short, it's like a short thing in like page 4, right?
Yeah.
And he says, the captain staggered his purchases rather than find himself with cargo of singular culture and disposition.
Hello.
Who knew what brand of mutiny his captives might cook up if they shared a common tongue?
So important.
Come on.
So important, Fezi.
Page 4.
So important, Fezi. Can I
Right?
just tell you? And that's one thing that I really clung onto when it came to working with Cora. Just to like jump straight in. And I think what also helped me is Tina, you know how they do with you know, teaching us history in general.
Exactly.
You know, they sort of just glaze over it. It's like a mention. So some of us who aren't inspired to learn more don't know any more than what we've observed on screen through a specific white male gaze or lens, you know. So that's all we know. Well, it's okay. This is what Hollywood has told us about the enslaved body in America, and that's it. Life goes on. Sure. But so when I started my preparation process for the character, I realized that there was a lot that I had to unlearn in order to learn the actual truth of the environment and the circumstance that the Black body found themselves in. And what really helped me was very early on, Barry sent me like material to read and material to listen to, which was audio testimonials of former enslaved people.
And then had a regular nurse, you know. Nurse, you never just seen old mister with the baby, never no time. It had a regular nurse. It's like, you know, you'd hire somebody's nurse, but be a grown woman nurse, tend that baby. And to keep them kids, never did care to old mister that was hungry night or day. No, that was hungry. They carried that too. You tended that baby. That baby slept with the old nurses, no. Yes, I slept with them. Didn't have nothing to do. Carry that baby and sit there until he'd nurse. And then after nurse...
These are not people in their 90s, you know, but dala. The one thing that I heard, and this is something that I discussed with my dialect coach. One, it's a 90-year-old speaking, but she sounds 16.
Sure.
And that took me back to what we did in physical theater at Wits. Part of our course was voice movement therapy, where we explored the vocal journey of each person, of each individual, and which then I could apply to different characters, because our voice also traces or tracks our traumas and different experiences and how you are taught. And so, you know, for me, it became very important to track Cora's vocal journey as well. And so my mind went, okay, what's the difference between Thuso and Cora? You know, Cora, number one, is we find her in a plantation. She is an enslaved person. You know, they have limits. It's boundless trauma. She was raped, gang raped at some point. And they witness so many things. They are in a place where they are not allowed to express themselves. But also, with Cora, she was abandoned by her mother at a young age. And when the group of boys or men raped her, they then went to her community and said she sleeps with wild animals, she howls at the moon. And then her own community ostracized her. So she is isolated further in that community. So umuntu, for me, who spends a lot of time in her head. So the question then became, she's got this inner turmoil, a lot is happening. What does this person sound like when she does eventually open her mouth? One, going back to the trauma being held in that place of being 16. And then reading the material of former enslaved people and hearing it, they spoke in a very, 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 very broken English. Sure. If you had to take the transcripts and read it, you don't actually understand what it is that they're saying until I had to like say it out loud, because it's more the sounds than the words. The words are jumbled, the sounds. But what struck me the most is the way that they sounded is English, that if you had to go to rural KZN or parts of the townships in South Africa, that's how people speak today.
Yes.
And so at that moment, it then stopped being a story about African Americans, and it became a story about Africans in America.
Sure.
That really struck me. But this thing is closer to home than I realized. And I took it back to, oh, snap. It was Cora's grandmother who was taken from Africa and brought to America and put in a space where, again, there's no shared language with the people that she finds herself in. So how are you communicating? The English that the master teaches them is an English for instruction, not English for conversation.
Exactly.
So what does that sound like? I remember I even went to Barry Batong. Do you see this research? And he was like, I get you, I understand you. And we can't break it up as much because we would need subtitles. Exactly. And the audience, unfortunately, is I don't want to say a lazy audience, but they don't want to be reading subtitles throughout.
Sorry, don't miss it. Yay! Bring it back, Barry!
I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Yes, ma'am.
This is really interesting for me because I'm busy in a master's course thinking about oral history, about the fact that often we think that the archive must be these big narratives that are written down with like a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah. But if you actually speak to people and hear their fundamental stories through the way that they tell them, through how they emphasize particular kinds of things, you start to hear that there's traumas, and then there's moments in the body and in the voice. But because the body is what houses the voice, when you are traumatized and holding on, it means particular kinds of things for the voice. It means that it either it deepens or there's a stutter. Or, you know, I think about, so it's the 10-year anniversary of my father's death this year. And to this day, I have a stutter as a result of that. Because because when someone told me that this had happened, I just stopped being able to make sound in the way that typically I'd made it before. And so, of course, Cora has a way in which she approaches both a physical and a verbal language, right? Yes. Which I think struck me so fundamentally because, you know, I've known you since high school. I know what Thuso sounds like. But oh my gosh, I was like, right? Which is so fundamentally different from Bonnie. And of course, you know, someone else who's, or Winnie rather, someone else who might be watching this will be like, oh no, you know, this was a South African character and this was an African American character. And I was like, no, there's a psychological shift that has actually happened.
It has to be 100%, 100%. Because again, what's nice, I think, what's nice about the book and the show is that it allows one to explore the psychological implications, which then shift the physical and thus vocal expression of Cora, because with each new state or with each new episode, she finds herself in a completely different environment. Yeah. And environment means experience, and experience means shift, because now, you know, understanding your world is completely different.
So when we talk about this, because Thuso, I think there's something so fundamentally important in what you've just said. Every single episode, we are entering a new Cora Randall, right? Yes. And I can see it in where you shift your weight physically as you enter, right? Tell me about that.
I had to track it, because again, we shoot out of sequence. Barry and them tried as best as they could to have us shoot, in sequence, but reality is there wasn't a budget to shoot from beginning to end, Kahle. And we respect that, we understand that, we're used to it. It's the nature of the industry. So I had to be very careful in like going from the jump. Again, taking into consideration Uguti, the script and the screenplay differs slightly in parts to the book, because again, there's no budget to make the book as it is. But also Coulson had afforded Barry that flexibility to take it where he wants to take it. He wasn't asking for a factual interpretation of the book, So there were things for me that I had seen in the book that weren't necessarily written into the script, that I felt I had to take and bring from the book and layer it with the character. Yeah, so that was there from the jump. Like, as I was prepping my character, I was doing research into the actual lived experience in the 1800s, but then I took the book as well to build Cora. So now, episode 1, we have Cora, who's on a plantation. She is someone who is constantly bent over cotton and gets. That's all they know. You're supposed to keep your head down. There's no eye contact, and she's trying to remain as small as possible so that she's not bugging anyone. But also she has this fierceness to her as we see her defending people, defending Uchester. She's able to stand up for herself when she's talking to Caesar, And as much as she keeps to herself, it doesn't mean Uguti she's this, what's this, umuntu osabayo, who's, who can't stand up for herself, basically. And again, the spoken language for me was limited because she keeps to herself, she hardly ever interacts, and we have the history of slavery and language in that. Episode 2, we jump to episode 2, South Carolina and Griffin. Here now is a Cora who is being taught how to speak. And she's being corrected if she speaks incorrectly. She's been taught now, no, you stand up, you posture, this is what a lady does, da. So what does that Cora look and feel like? How has that shifted her psychologically? And also taking into consideration her relationship with the white body, which is different to what it was in episode 1. We now cut to episode 3, North Carolina. They are in an attic. They're not allowed to speak because if they are heard, they are caught and they will die. Yes. What does that look like?
Yes.
For the voice and for the body, confined into the small space. But now also emotionally, she has this child that she feels like she has to take care of, Ukris. We cut to now 5 and 6, which is Tennessee. Ridgway has snatched her away. He is dragging her to what she believes is her death in Georgia, but she has this defiance now about her. She's experienced the white man outside of the plantation long enough to say, well, you know what? Yes, you're taking me to my death, but I will not cower in doing that. So she in Ridgway, she knows how to use her silence as a weapon. She knows when to speak, to push buttons, to get a reaction, or to give herself enough time to observe her environment so that if she has to plan an escape, she knows exactly what to do. Yeah. So her voice is a weapon in episode 5 and 6. And then when we get to the farm in Indiana, where she's seeing a whole different black body, a black body and, in prosperity and in abundance, a black body that has agency, a black body that has ownership of its own body. What is that experience like? They're carrying guns, they can defend themselves from the white man. But we also then have Royal saying to her, paraphrasing badly, you carry more than I have ever seen. You carry more of the world than I have ever seen. So yes, she's experienced a lot and she's lost a lot. And we know, again, loss is one of the greatest traumas that one experiences, which changes you physically, emotionally, and again, vocally. She is coming to herself a bit more. She's becoming more rounded. She's getting to know herself. But she still carries a whole lot of pain to the point where her subconscious tells her, you need to acknowledge that which you have gone through in order to change the trajectory of her life. Hence her going into now the dream sequence and, seeing Caesar and getting that closure that she needs. So there is a lot that Cora goes through in this journey, Underground Railroad, and we have to see that unfold emotionally, mentally, physically, vocally, for me most importantly. Where she starts more naive. Again, it was okay. We don't know how old she is exactly. I think she's early 20s, 19, early 20s. But for me, I'm thinking 90-year-old former enslaved person sounding 16. So now Cora has traumas. So she should sound younger than what she looks like or what she is. But by the time she gets to the end, she's a completely different person. Her voice is more grounded. It sits deeper in the diaphragm because she is sure of who she is. How she carries herself is completely different. She's not ashamed. She's unafraid. She is willing now to fight for her freedom.
I mean, I think there's something really interesting that Colson Whitehead. So I was watching one of the many interviews that he did when the book had just come out.
Yeah, I did a little bit of that as well.
And he says something so interesting for me. He says, in fact, enslaved people can't talk about PTSD because the trauma is sustained, right?
Yeah.
There's no post-traumatic stress disorder. Because the trauma, in fact, is the thing that you live with every single day.
Exactly.
Whether you are in the yard, in the plantation, or whether you are a person that has then moved and traveled and gone.
And gone north,
And gone north, right? But that story is ridiculous, right? Because your entire life you've been told, "Ukuthi fanele uhlalela," right? This is your experience. This is the beginning and the end of you. You will be born here and you're going to die here. And so to have the audacity to then go to the front gate, right? Not even out. To the front gate is a very particular kind of political decision. It's a psychological decision, and it's a decision about survival as well. And not to say that the people that stayed in the plantation weren't interested in conversations around survival, because they knew what it looked like to then be caught out,
exactly.
Right? And so there's a word that keeps coming to me every time I think about every time I've thought about this interview, and every time when I watched this very difficult, it was actually an incredibly difficult watch, I'm not gonna lie. It is gorgeous, it is deeply rich, it is deeply beautiful, but it is tough. It is a tough watch. And I think for me, the word that means something for both you and Cora is audaciousness, right? Is like audacity. And it's a bad translation, but ngesizulu unenkani.
I hear you.
A capacity for inkani, because that's effectively what changes the world, is this commitment. I think of Abahlali baseMjondolo, they say amandla wethu ngenkani, right? Like there's a definitive thing. So Thuso, uthatha blenkani to play such a complicated, heartbreaking. I was reading one of the interviews that you did, and the psychiatrist or the psychologist that was on set had to always remind you, Thuso, you're Thuso. It's you. You're still Thuso. Not Cora, right? Because of course because this is an embodied experience. So of course these memories started to affect your own body. So
because the thing is, when you're performing and you're 100% in it, the brain doesn't know the difference. Oguti, this is not actually you that you're taking on a role. Your body is experiencing the trauma over and over and over again. And for me, I think it comes from a place of, and again, I'll say this, and I don't know how to say it. Barry, just, in having met him, when we spoke, and he did a lot of listening that day, and he was able to look at me and say, you are the character, even though you don't have the role, you are the character. And then having worked with him, and having, him update me on what was happening just in post-production, sharing his moments with me, sharing words of encouragement even afterwards. And he asked me after watching it, how do you feel, whatever. And I said, Barry, honestly, I feel like you see something in me that I don't see in myself. Sure. And I can liken that to Cora in a way, because remember in episode 8 with Royal, he takes her to the underground and he says, you have seen more of the underground than anyone has, and maybe you will figure out what this means. And Cora gets angry. I remember that conversation with Barry where it's like, she's angry because Caesar said that she was special. Everybody else is saying that she's special, but she doesn't see what it is that they keep saying is special. She hates that they call her special, because every single time someone thinks that she is special, they end up dying or something happens to them. Sure. And so she says, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it means. All I know is that I am tired of running. And so, I really, and I'm actually connecting with that, in retrospect. I didn't make that connection in the moment when I was performing. But because again, my saying to Barry, you see something in me that I don't see, only happened after I watched the show. So even with that audaciousness or audacity, it's like, for me, I'm fighting to live out my purpose. Mm-hmm. Cora was fighting for her freedom. Sure. So it's like everything that I come across for me is just about, it's the next step to fulfilling my purpose. So if I need to go through this, it's for a reason, and if it doesn't kill me, it will make me stronger. That's just my general attitude in life, So when the opportunity came to perform this, and I've said this time and time again, when I read the book, I went through the feelings of, I don't know if I have it in me to serve the character in the way that she needs to be served. Because Ukora is unlike any character that I've come across. She is an everyday girl, not described with any notable gifts or talents. She at first, when Caesar comes up to her with the idea of running north, she dismisses him because honestly, like you said, going to the gate, it's a death sentence. Even having the thought is punishable by death. So how dare you come to me? And she asks him, why me? And he says, good luck. And for her, it's like, oh, because my mother left and she was successful, you think I am good luck. But that mother left me to endure a whole lot of suffering in this place. So is that the type of luck you're looking for? Yeah. The whole world has told me that I'm cursed. Is that what you're looking for? And so she's driven by so many things. She's driven by the ghost of her mother. She doesn't know what her pool is now, but she's going. There's something that's bigger than her that she's chasing, So I don't know. It really was fulfilling and doing the very best that I could in this process. And I'm really grateful that Barry did see whatever it is. Maybe he saw the audaciousness of this girl who left South Africa, came to America with no prospect of anything, but just trusted in this purpose and this something that's bigger than her,
Ere I saw a dappled wonder settling across the fields, hovering on angel wings, brandishing a blazing shield.
Where do they go? The ones that run away and never return.
There is nothing here but suffering, pain and suffering. It is time to go.
The girl in that bulletin is wanted for the murder of a child.
Man lost my mom, then me. Ain't no way he ever given up on finding me.
There's anger in you. It'll fuel you, yes, but what's the worst kind of fuel? The worst kind. Savagery a man is capable of when he believes his cause to be just.
You came all this way on the railroad?
Yeah. behind all those peoples.
Nothing was given. All was earned. Hold on to what belongs to you.
What's her name?